what's happening in schools? Are children being taught to be trans? Or have you got any questions for the attendees? Have you got any other suggestions that you'd like to share?
In schools, there seems to be it seems to be a little bit different from school to school, but there is a package of acting that if a child seems to be not conforming to gender or seem to be homosexual, the teacher or a social worker can start the process to determine whether the child is trans or not. Some do that very actively, it seems, and put the child in this awkward situation to learn that she is or he is different and maybe born in the wrong body. Mostly the parents are approached and can say no, but sometimes, often they feel very pressured and should be open to this kind of process, but it's still okay. There is still possibilities to say no to that when the children are small. Sweden has not officially decided to believe in gender and the possibility to be their own opposite sex, etc. But in action, we are acting as if the state believes in gender and trans possibilities.
Right now, there seems to be a certain reticence following some debates. We've held some very harsh debates about changing sexual education in schools. What is happening currently is not yet children being taught to trans, but it's just what I've been looking at, stuff like this from an official body, the Institute for Political Education, and they are flooding schools with material and conflating the situation of intersex persons, and I wish intersexuality was addressed a bit more in biology lessons so people really knew what is being talked about. They are conflating it with the interests of lesbian and male gay children, and the conflation is a problem. The trans bit is a bit, what they are doing is normalizing very much the idea that you can be trans, and they are also teaching children that gender means gender identity. And it just doesn't. I mean, gender means stereotypes. So they are preparing the ground. They're leaving doors open for this, but it's not yet happening.
The school thing is a very complicated, and I could echo Inge's words, because that is exactly what is happening here in Spain, which is also decentralized for education, and there are flooding teachers and that with guides. It's a very recent process. About 4 years ago it started, but now it's getting visible how all that work is permeating all through the levels. So I think this should be approached in a very specific panel that knows a lot about that, because it is quite complicated. I know several women, several groups that are studying regional laws, and they are appalled. So it would be better to have people specialized in that. But the situation is very, very similar to what Inge just said. And as a question for the rest of the panel and the attendees, I think it's a question and suggestion. I think at some point you should start to openly discuss autogynephilia, which is something that could explain a lot to a lot of people that have no idea what's going on and still believe in the narrative of the born in the wrong body. Once you know that concept of autogynephilia and how it is related also to narcissism and all that, so that the whole thing makes a lot of sense, and that could prevent the legislation to go further, especially when it comes to self-ID and that.
Hey, so my question for all the participants is, how do we create a multiplier effect with all of the people who are interested in this issue? That's just and I'm sure I'm not the first person to have thought of that. And I just had a couple of comments to make about children in schools. Are they being taught to be trans? Sort of. In New Zealand, the school boards of trustees have the embargo because they hold the pen on the approach to health and sexual education in the curriculum. But on the other hand, there's a lot of publicly funded investment that goes into the creation of materials for schools, for organizations like Rainbow Youth and Inside Out, which are youth-led organizations that have invented themselves as social enterprises. And they're basically selling their kind of youthful transgender identities back to the public sector and to the school community, teaching them about gender ideology. So and you know, the use of pronouns and the importance of all the other things that are regarded as vital. And sadly, our Labour Party, which because it's done so well around the COVID crisis, looks reasonably likely to form the next government, which is by and large a good thing as far as I'm concerned. But they're proposing to make the Ministry of Education guidance the only guidance available to schools around their health and health and sexual health curriculum.
Yes, LGBT plus Denmark, this big organization in Denmark, want to have LGBT competence courses on all levels in the Danish school system, but there are no official obligations yet. But I'm afraid that they may have success with this initiative. But I'm a high school teacher myself, and I have not seen any of these things yet, but they may come.